This is the Cal 101 podcast on Cape Atlantic Live. Here's your host, Nick Kosko.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cal 101 podcast right here on Cape Atlantic Live. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me today is Wildwood Catholic basketball head coach Will Wareham, joining the program presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. Coach, appreciate the time. As always, we are about a week away, if not a little bit under a week, from the start of the high school basketball season here in 2023-2024. Got to ask, so far, a second season for you at the helm of the program. I think there's a good opportunity for you guys to build off of some good things last winter. How has the preseason treated you guys so far this year?
Everything's been going pretty good so far, Nick. Had a scrimmage on Monday with Absigami. It was exactly what you would kind of want to get out of a scrimmage, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, right? We did some things that I like, some things that I think we can improve on, and some things that I definitely would hope we don't see too often as the season goes on. Knock on wood, everybody's healthy. Guys are really putting in a lot of work, and I'm excited to get rolling.
Absolutely. So you got a couple guys coming back this year. They're going to be key cogs for your lineup. We'll get into them in just a little bit. I know the record didn't really stand out last year, 9-18 last year, but you guys did make a tiny bit run in the Cal tournament, 1-1 in that conference tournament, and of course made the playoffs last year in South Jersey, non-public B, a tough loss to Holy Cross. But I got to think that with some of these guys coming back this year, the experience they got last year as well, it seems like you have a really good core group of guys that has a lot of experience that could really pay dividends this winter.
Absolutely. Those guys that we have coming back, that experience they gained last year, you really can't put a price tag on those things, But with the loss of Justin Harper, graduation, he's a huge piece that we would have to try to look to replace. And I think it's obviously going to be more so by committee than anything. But I'm looking forward to the group that we have and to see how things play out.
I was just about to ask you about that, and I'll actually get to that now. Justin Harper, who was one of your stars last year, again, your leading scorer, basically a do-it-all type of guy, one of the stars in South Jersey as well. He was the standout from last year, but he didn't, do it by himself. And again, we'll get into those guys in a second. But you just mentioned that it's going to be basically a player-by-committee approach to replace a Justin Harper. How do you plan to do that? Do you have to change your offensive and defensive styles, or it's just like, hey, you just need guys to step up in his absence?
I think it's going to be a little bit of everything you just said, Nick, to be honest with you. But I think we have some guys that are ready to emerge, that are ready to kind of take on that role. It may happen a little bit as the season goes on. It may not be from opening night, but Justin was such a special player, and I don't know if this has been touched on by anybody else, but I mean just think about the fact we're talking about the Cape Atlantic League. And Justin was the only player in the Cape Atlantic League to go on to play scholarship level basketball on a full ride. And our team, obviously our record didn't reflect, what we would want it to, but from an individual standpoint, Justin was just that special, man. And he's, I talk to him still pretty regularly, and he's got, a lot of basketball left in front of him. He's a great kid. But as far as our team goes this year, I think that we have some guys that are willing to step up. I know some that you're probably going to touch on, but we have a couple other guys too that I don't know if, people kind of know their name as well yet, but I think they have a chance to be really good in the Cape Atlantic League as well.
Obviously, you guys are a couple of years removed from, the Cal tournament title and the South Jersey title in non-public B back in 2020. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride since then, but having a guy like Harper, I know he did just graduate, but he's on scholarship. He's playing college ball now. But having a guy like that, despite the fact that the record wasn't what you wanted last year and the fact that he could elevate the other guys around him, I got to imagine that gives your current team confidence, and maybe guys who are coming up through the program or guys who are eventually going to come to the school and play for you at Wildwood Catholic. I got to think it's, one, maybe it's a recruiting tool, but also, hey, like this is still a great program that we can develop you, and we can obviously have one of the best teams in South Jersey once again.
Nick, so when you touched on talking about those teams that, came prior to me coming to Wildwood Catholic, we myself and guys that have kind of had some type of connection to that team, to put in perspective how good that team was that won that Cal and South Jersey basketball team. And this is going to maybe sound a little extreme,
Mhm.
That's quite possibly one of the best Cape Atlantic League team basketballs ever.
Mhm.
Like ever, not in recent years, not in the last 10 years, ever. Like I would ask anybody to go back in their record books. I know,
Mhm.
you guys have been doing this for a while. Tom Williams, all those guys, go back and look. Tell me the last time that there was a high school basketball team out there that had two in the Cape Atlantic League that had two high major guys on it, right? Like
Right.
you're talking about guys that ended up out of high school, respectively, going to Temple and West Virginia. That just doesn't typically happen in the Cape Atlantic League, right? But with that being said, segueing into Justin, right?
Mhm.
After we had a couple guys transfer out of the program last year, and a little bit of that had to do with the expectation level within our program wasn't what those guys maybe had anticipated it being, right? So
Right.
Justin kind of flourished through it. Justin kind of saw it, and the guys that are coming into the team this year kind of see, hey, this is what's supposed to happen. If you want to play basketball at a high level, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to move on to play college basketball. But if we want to have success in the Cape Atlantic League, this is what it's going to take night in and night out to put. And this is what's going to happen at practice. So all those things have kind of, I'm hoping, you know, can equate to success. If not this year, but like you said, future years recruiting. Like if you're serious about basketball, this is a place that's serious about basketball, and this is where you probably should be.
So you do have a key core back as well. Guys that, again, we touched on before, that do have a lot of experience already from playing last year. Obviously, getting their play elevated by a guy like Justin Harper in 22 and 23. Pat Bean, Ryan McGrath, Tayshaun Jackson, Charlie Dunn, to name a couple of guys. I'd imagine those four guys are going to be maybe the go-to guys this year that are at least on paper known from last year going into this year. What can you say about that group and maybe some other guys that we should be looking out for this year?
No, that group right there, Nick, is exactly like I said. They know what it is, right? So when I call out a drill that we're going to run at practice, those guys know it, right? They know what is going to happen. They kind of help almost be like quasi coaches on the floor during practice, and those guys will be instrumental in our success. We have some other returners too, and like a, a senior Anthony Edwardi, senior Kelshawn Russell. Those guys will all help. But we have some transfers that came in too. We have Alex Daniel, who had put up some really nice numbers as a freshman at Wildwood High, and we have the Ruiz brothers who transferred from Vineland, who kind of are just now getting comfortable in the setting. Hey, this is what coach wants us to do here. I think those guys will play a big role for us. And we have a transfer from Middle Township, Calvin Kiker, and he's a sophomore, along with Peyton Rosanello, who had a great freshman year. And I think we have a nice little mix. And I'm again, just to kind of piggyback off what I said earlier, I'm really excited to see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
Now, this being your second year at the helm of this program, you came in from the college ranks, and you've been around coaching for a long time at this point. It's a new era, and I know this is more of a college-oriented question, but it does trickle down to high school, especially nowadays with the transfer portal. I know NIL might not be a thing down here in South Jersey quite yet. Maybe for another 5 to 10 years when the talent really sprouts up. You know what I mean? But you mentioned the transfers that came in, the new blood, so to speak, that you have on this team this year. How do you mesh those guys? And some coaches have had different answers to transfers because, they're from the area and a lot of these kids do know each other anyway. But have you faced any challenges trying to mesh the new guys coming in who did not necessarily play basketball with your core group of guys?
Yeah, obviously, kids show an interest in wanting to be, if they're serious about basketball, right? They're seeking out programs that are serious about their basketball as well, right? So, and it comes a point in time where these kids are going to transfer in. It's obviously about the school first, right? Will they fit in well at the school? And then if that's the case, if that's a good fit for them, then basketball wise, that's on us as coaches to say, hey, let's figure out a way to make it work here, and the kids that we have that I mentioned that were transfers above and beyond. I know it's really cliche to say, but they're good kids, right? Like everybody would say, oh, he's a good kid. Like the four kids I just mentioned, Alex, Calvin, and Kyle and Nasir, they're like really good kids. So they they fit into what the school's mission is. They fit into, what we're doing as a basketball program. So that makes it just that much easier.
To piggyback off of what I just said before as well, you being in now your second year, when you had to lay sort of your foundation last year, again, you had a star player, you had a younger but core group of guys that was going to be with you most likely for the next 2 to 3 years. Did you find yourself more so laying a foundation and then you said, all right, year 2 is where we're really going to explode? Or how did you manage that when you came into the program last year as compared to this year?
So last year when I got the job in the summer, right, there was still a few kids there that that ended up deciding to transfer as we got to September of the actual school year starting, right? So the talent pool when I got here was a little bit different than what it was once the season actually started. So once we kind of started saying, hey, this is how we're going to run the program from a basketball standpoint, it was like, hey, let's build this, like you just said, the word foundation, right? Like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Let's not waver from it. We've had success doing this before. Like my one assistant head coach, Al Gens, he coached with me at the collegiate level for a handful of years. So him and I, like, we talk every single day, obviously, but prior to taking the job, one of the things was like, hey, Al, if I decide to take this head coaching job, are you in? Yeah, Al's in. All right. Hey, how are we going? Let's figure out how we're going to run this run this program. And we decided right then and there, like, hey, we had success at the college level doing it this way. Let's do it here. And because it's not, as much as somebody might want to turn it into rocket science, it's not. You're still dealing with people in basketball, right? So, hey, let's treat these kids exactly the right way. Let's treat them to, hold them to this type of standard, and everything else kind of will work itself out.
Will Wareham with me on Cal 101 on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. The Wildwood Catholic basketball season getting underway, as is the rest of South Jersey, coming up next week. So you mentioned the college level, bringing your assistant coach down to the program here in Wildwood. Now, with your college experience, you have more experience at that level than others do around this area. Do you take little things from your college days and say, this worked at college, it can also apply to high school? Or do you have to drastically change things, maybe scale some things back? Or maybe is it not that different when people really boil it down?
So, Nick, I'll tell you what the biggest difference is this, honestly, for me. The first, we're like a week into practice. And I said to Al and my brother, Joe, who last year coached the JV for us, I've never had another program in the gym, right? Like, so when you're going to practice, you're concentrating on the varsity, like the college team. You're playing who you're playing, and that's it, right? The 12 or 14 or 15 guys you have. So now here we are in a gym, and we have 20 kids in the gym, and we have to figure out we have one gym at Wildwood Catholic, right? Yeah. Small private school. We have one gym. So now I have to figure out, hey, how do I get court time for the JV team, who eventually I'm going to need at the varsity level, right? How do we get these kids better? How do we get these kids ready to play at the varsity level? And, we have a 2 hour, 15-minute window to get a meaningful practice in for a varsity game along with a JV. So that was like that was the biggest transition piece, and trying to figure that out. So that the time, I guess I would say, like, the time management piece with them was huge. But the like I said, the game is the same at whatever level it is, right? Yeah. Until you start, you start talking about the professional level, you start talking about like personality management and stuff like that. But at the, grassroots level, high school on through collegiate level, the game is the same, right? So it's, you work on fundamentals, you work on scheme, and so on. At least that's a philosophy for me, right? Like that doesn't really change too much.
So transitioning to a bigger picture around South Jersey, I've talked to numerous coaches about this, where I've asked them about the depth of the Cape Atlantic League over the last 5 to 10 years, how it's really developed. Used to be very top heavy. Now it's going from top to bottom. You can get a quality matchup every night. We saw evidence over the past couple of years throughout the Cal tournament, throughout the regular season. It just seems like even if some schools are in quote-unquote rebuilds, they're still able to compete at a high level with other teams that they know from this county or down from Cape May County. What is your impression now that you're going into year 2 of the Cape Atlantic League, knowing what you know of the history of the league, but also what you've seen as of late and the development of a lot of these schools?
Oh, I would 100% agree with that. As far as the parity, I mean, I think there's, there's maybe one or two teams at the top who are distinctively maybe a little bit better than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think almost on any given night, you could run into anybody could beat anybody for sure. And that makes for an exciting season. Nobody wants to look at a game like, we know who's already going to win, right? So it makes for an exciting season. And that was one of the draws for me to come to coach at Wildwood Catholic, especially in Cape May County, and the Cape Atlantic League. Basketball is it means so much, right? It means so much in our area. People know kids who played 15, 16, 17 years ago. They still remember their names. They still remember games that happened. And the game of basketball means so much in the Cape Atlantic League. And then, like I said, in Cape May County, it means that much more, right? So that it's really exciting. The parity makes it that much more exciting.
Wildwood Catholic head coach Will Wareham with me here on Cal 101, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service on Cape Atlantic Live. Coach, I'll leave you here with this one, and I know you guys have a scrimmage as we're taping this coming up soon this afternoon, so we're really gearing up for the season right here. I got to ask you about your expectations for this year. Every coach gives me a different answer, but they either give me the coach speak. They say, we expect to be at this level. This is our philosophy. I got to imagine because of the history at Wildwood Catholic, there is that expectation to live up to that standard of you're competing for South Jersey titles. You're trying to get the state championships. Again, not what you wanted last year. Did make the playoffs, though, and gave some Cal teams a scare along the way. But now that you're developing, these guys have a bigger core group, and now you can see the future ahead. What do you see in 23, 24, your expectations for the Crusaders this year?
Nick, I honest to God, I don't want to sound cliche at all. Again, I'm just hoping that we can continue to get better every single day. I like the balance that we have within our program, right? We have a handful of seniors, we got a few juniors, and we got a few sophomores. So I really like where things are at today. But if we can get a little bit better every single day, like that would make me so much more excited for what's to come into the future for us. I know you talked about the expectations at Wildwood Catholic. Listen, I'm following up on 1 year. Like Anthony Raffet was the head coach here for 1 year. He's arguably the best player in school's history, right? Mm-hmm. Dave DeWeese was the coach prior to him. He's arguably the best coach in the school's history, right? So, I know all that stuff. Like I know that, and that's in the back of my mind. And it's fuel for us, right? Like I really want us to have guys that can be in that conversation at some point with Anthony and the group that won a South Jersey championship back in 2020. I would love to have myself end up in a conversation of Dave DeWeese. Like those guys mean everything to the program. And I hope that, I try to instill that in our guys every single day that, hey, fellas, expectations and pressure comes with a price, right? That means people expect things of you. And you have to live up to it. You have to rise up to that occasion. And I hope that we can kind of continue to do that throughout the year. I think that we have a chance, to answer your question about where I kind of see us going in 23, 24. I think we have a chance to really be competitive night in and night out. I think our league, Middle Townships, I would have to say in our division mm-hmm. is probably the clear cut favorite, right? But I mean, how do you count out St. Augustine with Coach Rodeo? The guy is a legend, not just in New Jersey, nationally. And hate to throw it out there, the guy's probably going to end up in the Naismith Hall of Fame. I mean, think about how crazy that is to say that you coached in a league with a guy that's probably going to end up in the Naismith Hall of Fame, right? And like I said, Middle, St. Augustine, and then you have teams in there like the Group 4 powerhouses, like in EHT. Millville moved into our division, so night in and night out, it's going to be a war, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Like I want to play. I want us to be challenged every night because I'm gonna, if you ever have an opportunity to step in our gym, trust me, I'm challenging our guys every single day of practice. So
you guys definitely have one of the most unique environments in South Jersey, particularly in Cape May. that gym is right on time. Actually, before I let you go, I gotta ask you about that. You guys, especially when you guys are rolling, it gets loud in there. The gym shakes. It's so tight. The fans are basically stacked on top of each other. You have to say that Wildwood Catholic's gym is probably one of the most unique across the entire state of New Jersey.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, the double lines on our floor, right? The walls a foot off the baseline. The far side bleachers are probably like on a 10-degree pitch, right? So no, listen, it's awesome, and I didn't go to Wildwood Catholic, but I would tell you this: there's no better place to play if it's a big time game. There's no better place to play in South Jersey. Maybe I would put it up against anybody's environment. So, if we're fortunate enough to have a successful season and we're playing a big time game, anybody who's listening, I suggest you get your ticket by the halftime of the JV game, because we'll sell out.
They're definitely going to sell out. We're looking forward to catching you guys all season long. We'll be in touch, obviously. Good luck this season, Coach. Looking forward to watching you guys build it brick by brick. And, again, this could be the return of a pretty good era here of Wildwood Catholic basketball.
I appreciate it, Nick. Thanks, guys.
Wildwood Catholic head coach Will Wareham with me right here on Cal 1-on-1, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service right here on Cape Atlantic Live.